Hello, it's Wednesday, September 20th at 8:04:54, and you're listening to the Roundup Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the big fight this weekend, maybe some movies, and at the top of the hour at 9 o'clock, Professor Bob Search is going to be talking some aliens with us. So stay tuned, and what's going on, boys?
Nothing. How was everyone's weekend?
Nice.
We weren't on Monday.
What?
We weren't on
We
Monday.
weren't on Monday, I know.
Sorry for listeners.
Sorry for our diehard fans out there.
All 6 of them there. Yeah, pissed. But, what was your weekend?
It was good.
Weekends, rather. Nick, what about you?
Not bad. It's been an interesting weekend. I've just been on the grind for money a lot lately.
That's what it's all about, baby. Grinding for that cash. Speaking of grinding for cash,
know about that.
have you seen Bad Baby?
No, it's that. Is it a movie?
I didn't realize it, but I found it last night. Maybe I'm behind on the schedule here, but what's the girl? The Cash Me Outside girl. She's got her own. She signed up with a record label, and she's like a multimillionaire now.
Really?
Which is disgusting.
I didn't follow.
You know,
that.
and I'm not much of I'm not the kind of person to be hating on somebody, but that girl should not be a multimillionaire.
I feel like
it's
anyone
disgusting,
who just
man.
does do things like that. Why do they get paid to do
it's
that?
insane.
I don't
insane.
get it.
And people, the record label, they actually, one of their executives had a quote, and they were saying like, she's undeniably a talent and a star.
What?
And
What makes you a talent and a star?
in this day and age, you just got to go on Dr. Phil and start yelling and fighting with. Oh man, it's disgusting.
It's
I'm
horrible.
And I know traditionally when people say this, everyone's like, "Oh, stop being like a grumpy hipster." Whenever someone says like, "Man, like, music these days sucks." Why is that girl a multi-millionaire and considered a musician? She's considered a musician now.
Yeah, I don't get it.
And you listen to the song, and it's just nothing but auto-tune. It's disgusting, man. It's literally
I've never
disgusting.
heard the song. I'm gonna have to listen to it later.
Well, I don't know. Can we play it here? She probably swears a lot. I mean, I probably wouldn't play
I
it.
don't want to take a risk. With
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean,
I don't even
want to
give her the. I don't even want to.
That's
Yeah,
very
I
true.
don't want to give her the credit.
But
I don't want to taint our podcast right now with this.
Yeah.
The song is called "These Hoes," but it's spelled Heaux.
Oh my god.
It's horrendous.
Oh my god.
And this girl's a multi-millionaire. And honestly,
scary.
there's no one to blame but ourselves. Like, we created this monster. We let this girl become a star on YouTube. I get it. It was funny. But now she's making millions, and she's actually on the top 100 billboards, which is horrendous. She has the record now for the youngest female singer to ever make it on the top 100. I was trying to look up who she beat out, but she probably beat out some very talented girl back in the 70s or something, and it's disgusting. It's honestly
horrible because
it's weird. That's
there's
Bad
so much,
Baby. Like, oh,
there's so much you can actually. There's so much better things you can listen to than this.
And
it's so dumb. Like, I listen to so many, like, a lot of good new and up and coming bands, and they don't get nearly the same amount of attention
I'm with you.
that she gets, and it's insane that we do this.
It's disgusting.
It's insane. She has no talent whatsoever,
Yeah.
and now we're propping her up on an idol as an idol, and then like, on a pedestal.
pedestal.
Thanks for helping me out on that.
but no, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
She has no musical talent,
No.
and now we're propping her up on a pedestal. She can't play a guitar. She can't play drums.
She can't sing because she's on auto-tune the whole
Exactly,
friggin' time.
and this is what
basically-
we've done.
Yeah, they're making like
It's our own fault,
now
It's,
like a rock star is like it's like an act. It's not like
it's
a
pretty
talent.
bad.
Yeah.
And I know there's definitely people out there like, no way, man. But like, you cannot tell me music these days is even close to what it used to be.
Yeah.
Because you have people like BHAD, BHABIE, Bad Baby. You have that. And that's on the top 100, man. Back in the 50s, not even the 50s, the 40s, I don't know. Back, they would have thought she was a witch, and they would have stoned her to death. And now she's, you know what I mean? This girl going on stage going, "Cash me outside, how about that?" Like, they'd have been like, what is this creature? Like, what is this? Like, let's get her out of here. And they throw her in prison. And I don't know. It's just nuts. It's nuts.
Definitely nuts.
You know, but I saw that last night, and I was actually like reading about it, and I was like investigating for like a half hour about it because I was flabbergasted.
Yeah, and it just makes you really question what we're spending
what people are spending their time listening to.
And it's our own fault.
It really is.
Well,
Oh god!
We've given her
I
a
feel
platform.
like it's the youth's fault. Honestly.
It is.
We didn't
It
do
is.
anything
It
about
is.
this.
Okay,
I know
yeah.
I didn't do anything about this, but
I
I
feel
feel
like-
like today's youth. Like I was talking to my dad this weekend. Like I wouldn't want to be a parent these day and age.
No,
Like,
it would be
imagine
so
having
hard.
a kid. Like yeah, it's too hard.
It's so many things can go wrong.
Your
I feel like-
iPad can control your kid.
yeah, it's
At
insane.
this point,
But yeah, I feel like I think the reason why the record company signed her was obviously because she had like 11 million Instagram followers. And I feel like if you have 11 million Instagram followers
that's
or 11 million followers in any social media venue these days, you're like instant star status, which doesn't make any sense to me, but that's how it is. So I don't know. But let's move on real quick. Did you guys see the fight this weekend?
No, I was not able to catch the fight. I was busy working.
yeah, I didn't
Where are
catch
you?
the fight
You were
either.
grinding this weekend, Vic?
I was grinding this weekend. I not only for our listeners who don't know, I work as an assistant to the sports information director here at Centenary, and I have to work some of the games here and film and or run the clock. And this weekend I had to pull a double header, which means I had to work the women's game and the men's game. And on Thursday, I also had to work the men's volleyball game, or not the men's volleyball, women's volleyball
A
game.
lot of sports this
Yeah,
weekend.
lots of
Yeah.
sports.
And then I did something under the table for a buddy of ours.
Nice.
Yeah, you did something under the table, Vic?
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so, yeah, I mean, I saw the fight, right? And I'm not a huge fight guy, right? A lot of people try to like pretend like they're big fight guys and they know what they're talking about. I like to think I kind of know what I'm talking about. I like to think, but like I've in the past year, I mean, I've seen a decent amount, and whenever there's a big fight going on, I feel like it's just
Most
if you're
people
a
watch it,
sports
yeah.
fan, yeah, you kind of have to watch.
I
Some
watched
of
a
the
lot
big
of
fights.
the. I'm surprised I didn't watch.
Especially
this one.
boxing, because if some people say UFC is too brutal for him, I get it. I understand it.
It's not. It's a different kind of sport.
Yeah, like boxing to me shouldn't even be in the same category as UFC. I mean, they're both combat sports, but they're totally different. But the fight this week, it was awesome. It was an awesome fight, right? And I'll tell you one thing: that Triple G guy, he is a savage.
He's supposed to be like the best new name in boxing.
He's I never seen it. Like I honestly think if him and Mayweather end up fighting, I think he could have gave Mayweather a serious run for his money. And I know everyone was like, "Oh, Conor McGregor's got a chance," which he didn't.
I
But-
think anyone has a chance. In
yeah,
boxing.
I know, that's
It's a
true.
Fight. Anything can happen.
But I think Mayweather knew Triple G could have rocked him because this guy, right? It's funny because you look at the guy, the fight starting, and he doesn't he's not shredded. He's not like built. He looks like just some regular Russian guy, always from Kazakhstan, and he doesn't have this like over, I don't know, this intimidating physique to him, but he's just got this he's got that Soviet Union communist feel to him, and the guy, right? He just goes forward. He's a pressure puncher, and the guy just never stopped moving forward, and he just overwhelms you with punches. And the guy was an animal, because I think in today's age, a lot of the complaints about boxing is it's not as exciting. You don't have a lot of fighters who are trying to
it's
knock you out.
solid, yeah.
This guy came for his head and knew nothing else. Like this guy didn't know, and all he knew was to move forward and punch. Because I'm as a 10-year-old in Soviet-controlled Kazakhstan, he probably couldn't think for himself. But I don't know, it was nuts. It was crazy. This guy was just nuts, and it's funny too because it's you sit there and after the interviews, before the fight and after the fight, it's all. I bring big picture fight here too. I don't know how to do it, Kazakhstan, but it was just cool. It was a good fight, and as we all know, and I'm sure most people who are listening to this or will be listening to this, I'm sure most of them know that it ended in a draw, which was absurd. It was,
but
absurd.
the score, if you didn't know, was 118 to 110.
That was on that judge that made it a draw.
Yeah,
right. Because there were 3 judges, and the first one was 114, 114. The second one was 116, 112, and then there was the 118 to 110, which is, and that judge actually has the last night taking a leave of absence, which is probably needed, but. I think a lot of, and everyone went nuts about that.
Because if you this is how you have to think about it. It's a huge moneymaker in Vegas for sports gambling, which is people sports gamble all the time. And the thing about a boxing match is they're going to one clear winner. And people threw a lot of money on that fight. If you have a draw, there's probably
what happens in a draw if you're gambling?
I think you have to pick that there's a draw because that's
Really?
an
Oh, you're
outcome of
right.
a fight. Yeah, so like
I'm gonna Google that. You're probably
yeah,
right.
but I'm almost positive because like if you place a big bet and like a high risk bet, meaning like for like a fight, like saying Mayweather McGregor fight, say like you place a bet for $300 for McGregor to knock him out, Mayweather out in the third round. That's like a prediction, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you call the end of the fight, it's like the same thing, but just a less like risky prediction.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I think
definitely
you
what-
have to call the draw on
You
it.
probably do. I mean, I know it was pretty. It's just a lot of people. It confirmed what a lot of people thought, and have thought for many years.
And sports
boxers were-
gambling,
yeah.
people even. I mean, I really do believe now that I've looked into sports gambling more. I wouldn't say I'm a sports gambler,
Yeah.
but my friends do it. So they always talk about it. I see it all the time.
What do they do? They do it on the.
They have
Yeah.
like bookies at their schools, and
Yeah.
they go do it off like a website or app usually, and but it's actually really crazy because it makes you really think about sports and what these bets are. For, say a basketball bet, like a common one over the summer, it'll be like Kevin Durant to score in like a finals game, like 21 points, like in before the fourth quarter. So like you take that bet, it has good odds to win good money, but like he'll score like 19, and the whole time you're thinking to yourself like, all he had to do was score one more point. Like, did they just do this
only
to
he
make me
knew
like go
my money's
crazy?
on- yeah.
About the
It probably. I mean, I'm sure it changed like how you're watching the sport too. I'm sure it makes it way more exciting.
Yeah, definitely
You know,
makes it way more exciting.
Like if you were betting on golf or something, I'd be sitting there like, "Come on, let's go."
Yeah.
But I have you ever seen Casino?
No, I haven't.
Well, in the movie, Robert De Niro is like this big into gambling, and he talks about how in the movie, like when he's betting on, obviously it's a movie, but I'm sure it's very accurate to this degree. It's the whole movie he's talking about how he like when he's betting on a football game, he'll like research if the kicker's girlfriend broke up with him, and then he'll does all this crazy extensive research and
see like
how what kind of grass they use. So now and I'm sure when it gets to big money, I'm sure there are people who go into that kind of level.
and I'm sure that kind of stuff pays off.
oh
Honestly.
yeah, like if you know if the ball is going to bounce a certain way.
Yeah, or
I
like
don't know.
I mean, especially the thing with the kicker. If the game comes down to it,
Yeah,
field
if
goal,
he's been
what's going through his
stressed out
head?
or not, but yeah, I mean the fight. It was Triple G was a clear winner, and that's not even just my take. That's
I mean, yeah, that was
the take of
I saw
everybody.
the replay, yeah, and he was a clear. I don't even know how the score in general was.
I know.
So close.
And I mean, that's not saying that Canelo didn't put up a good fight. It was a great fight. It was a phenomenal fight. It was very exciting. And especially following up with the Mayweather McGregor fight, which was good. It was a good fight, but this was like two excellent top of the game boxers going at it, and it was phenomenal to watch. And it was the perfect matchup. You had a pressure fighter versus a counterpuncher. So it was really like a perfect matchup. And I mean, Triple G was the clear winner, but and there was also somebody. And now they're gonna have a rematch, which was in the clause, in the fight clause in the contract, only if Canelo lost. So I think because it was a draw, it was going to happen. But now there was some boxing executive who was like,
yeah, boxing is a crazy world.
It makes you. I mean, it makes you think. Even back in the day.
Like how many times?
How many fights were rigged?
Fixed,
Rocky Marciano. That's widely known that he, and he was like 56-0, and he was a beast back in like the 40s and 50s. But his entire career was plagued by the mafia, and they would, fix fights and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but it
happens, I guess.
It does happen. It was a great fight, and I think Triple G was the clear winner, and I know I'm just repeating myself, but it was awesome.
You see that?
It was weird.
All right, so
What happened?
the light in the other studio just like randomly turned on.
Really?
Speaking of scary stuff and ghosts, Jamie.
Oh yeah, I saw. Well, I mean,
We're
gonna have to say it in a bit.
I'll say it now. But yeah, I saw It last night. Phenomenal movie.
Phenomenal.
You gotta
movie.
see
You heard
it.
it here first.
You have to see
WNTI.
it.
Phenomenal.
You have to see it. I originally downloaded it on my laptop. 'Cause I pirate everything, and but it was a handheld camera one, so I was like, this is kind of a waste. And then last night, Tuesday nights they have the $6 movies. So I'll go spend the money. I guess I'll give in to the big man, this time. But
And it was worth it.
yeah, it was a phenomenal movie. It was so good. And I'm not even a big
really
horror
wanna
movie
see it.
guy. It was so well done that I had to see it, and the reviews were phenomenal. But we'll cash you after the short break. Love these ads, I guess, and we'll be back.
This is the sound of someone correctly installing a car seat. And this is the sound of someone incorrectly installing a car seat. Correctly, incorrectly. Hear the difference? No? That's because installing a car seat incorrectly is terribly easy. So much so, 75% of adults install them wrong. For simple instructions on how to get it right, visit buckleupforlife.org. Ah, perfectly executed. Brought to you by Cohen Children's Medical Center.
Hi, this is your Golden Gup. Join me for a celebration of America's classic pop music on the Tailfin Turntable. Sundays at 12 noon, here where great music still lives.
And this is me, Lulu. Stick around as I join Gup for Still Rockin', first generation rock and roll plus today's artists who share the passion on WNTI.org.
Get ready to be transported back in time as Centenary Stage Company welcomes Ensemble Chacon in Measure for Measure, the music of Shakespeare's plays on Sunday, September 24th at 2 p.m. in the Lackland Performing Arts Center. Hailed for vitality and character, style and verve, Ensemble Chacon displays versatility and dramatic flair in everything from love songs and comic antics to madness and tragedy, featuring music by leading composers of Shakespeare's time with selections from As You Like It, Twelfth Night, Henry V, The Winter's Tale, The Tempest, Hamlet, Othello, and Macbeth, all performed on Renaissance-era instruments. Tickets for Ensemble Chacon's Measure for Measure, the music of Shakespeare's plays are $22.50 for adults and $15 for children under 12 in advance. $5 more on the day of the performance. They're available online at centenarystageco.org or by phone at 908-979-0900. Don't miss the perfect Elizabethan evening with Ensemble Chacon in Measure for Measure, the music of Shakespeare's plays, Sunday, September 24th at Centenary Stage Company's Lackland Performing Arts Center.
And welcome back. You're listening to the Roundup Podcast. Make sure to check out the Shakespeare play at Centenary College. But, so we were just talking about it.
Yes.
And the movie was phenomenal. It was a great movie. Highly, highly, highly recommend it to anybody.
What's the website again? WNTI.org.
WNTI.org.
And it was awesome. And Pennywise, the way they did Pennywise, I've seen a little bit of the original. I didn't see the whole thing because it was like 4 hours long. This was a long movie, but now it also came out in the 80s. But Pennywise was creepy, man. He was creepy. His voice too, like his voice was perfect to me.
I can't wait to see it.
I don't remember how the old Pennywise voice was, but this guy, like,
You're right. Let's pull up a clip.
And I described it earlier. He kind of sounded like Scooby-Doo a little bit. Like, his laugh, too, was like, it was this really, like, demented laugh. And it was terrifying. And,
Yeah.
And the way they did some of the, and, Nick, this is the stuff you'd probably be, like, super interested in. Like, the way they did some of the, I don't even know, like, the term would be, but some of the takes, some of the camera shots when he was doing, like, really weird things was really strange. Like, they would zoom in, like, give a close-up to him. But while it was zooming in, it was kind of like shaking the camera. It was weird.
That sounds
and they
crazy.
play
I
this.
like
They play this weird sound too. Like, was at some point, at certain points, he'd start dancing or something, and he had this like crazy look in his face, and the camera zooms into him and starts vibrating, and it was a great movie.
I
I
kinda
got
wanna
a
watch
clip
it
of
now.
all this voice.
You want to plug it into the aux so we can?
Just send it to me in a text and I'll pull it up right now.
All right.
So
try to figure
is this the old Pennywise?
Yeah.
So
If
Vic,
you-
try to play that one and then play
Or
the
if
new
you're on,
Pennywise.
if you're on YouTube, just type in 3
Yeah.
parts from It, Stephen King, 1990.
So try to compare the old one versus the new one. And
Yeah, you can probably find a video.
you definitely can. I mean, the creepiest part of the new one is honestly, in my opinion, like the first scene when Georgie's
yeah, I
boat.
can't believe that it started like that because the other one I know, I'm 99%
waited?
sure. Yeah, it waited like a little bit to start because it introduced
This
like
one
his
right
brother.
into it, kind of.
and- yeah.
I mean, there was definitely a
There you
story
go.
behind everything. It was the story's very deep, but
So this is It, the original It.
so is this his voice?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even the soundtrack in this
You
one
gotta
is
like
scary.
you
This
gotta
one-
fast forward a little because this scene is like when he just pops out. Well, if our followers are listening that have seen it, that the scene where he
I just want to hear his voice.
All
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Here's where he comes out of the gutter in the old movie.
Hi, Georgie.
Yeah, it does not compare.
He's got like a creepy
He's
old
creepy.
like smoker voice.
You should be on an ad for smoking.
Yeah. He's like,
Come on, bucko. Don't you want a balloon?
Yeah, now, Vic, see if you can
those
find
noises, dude.
the new one. See if you can find the scene for the new one, that exact scene. So that was the gutter scene,
Yeah.
as Nick described. And in this one, like, he was just, it was weird because in this one, because he's just like, I'm trying to think how to describe him. He's like, he's very simple. Like, he's kind of, he seems like stupid. I
oh
don't
wow.
know. Yep, so Geordie's boat goes.
Notice how
into the
like much
gutter.
more intense the music
I
is
know.
compared to the
It's
old
such a
one.
difference.
Whoa, that noise.
Wait.
Georgie. What a nice boat.
So creepy.
Do you want it back?
Yeah, like the
Can you
whisper.
see it? Can you see it?
Look like a nice boy.
Same exact
You
scene.
want a balloon too, Georgie?
He's so creepy.
Take stuff from strangers.
Yeah, you ready?
Oh, well, I'm Pennywise the dancing clown. Now we aren't strangers.
Through the headphones, it sounds so scary.
All right, like if you're not,
Gives you
Yeah,
goosebumps,
if you
man.
really, if you had your eyes shut or something, that'd be
Like,
Without
terrifying.
your boat.
And then he.
Take it.
Oh, no, don't do it! What are you doing? What are you taking a boat from a clown for? In a gutter. Or a sewer. Yeah, man.
so there's another clip. There's
But
another
like,
video
when
where
he first came in, he had like the ooh at the end of his.
You know what I mean? Like,
heard
kind of
it.
like a
I heard it,
Scooby-Doo
yeah.
effect.
I definitely
He's
heard
so
that.
creepy.
Yeah,
Man,
It's- oh
well,
my
I have
God.
to say, you know,
just the tone of voice, the music is. The
And, like,
old one,
the
you can tell it wasn't the sound.
know.
Like they didn't. I guess it's not that they didn't care. About
the
it
old
as
one,
much.
like, you know, just some old guy. This one, I don't know who played the original Pennywise. Or
Bill Skars, or no, the new one is Bill Skarsgård.
dude, his voice is perfect. And he's sitting there and he's, oh, well, Pennywise, meet Georgie. And I don't know, just
Yeah.
freaky, man, freaky. I had to say, if I was Georgie, right, and I was a little kid, I don't, maybe he's just a brave soul. I would have immediately ran. And I would have,
100%.
I would have bet.
God,
I would have, if I saw
I
some,
actually just saw that scene, the new scene where he just goes straight in for the bite. I just saw like how they changed.
yeah,
the
it's crazy. Like it's like a creature, you know.
Yeah.
I mean that's not even a spoiler because anyone who's read the books,
Well, not in the old one. I guess because it's CGI now. That like in the old one, he was supposed to be like a creature,
yeah.
and they tried to have him have these crazy like
Were they
teeth,
able to?
kinda.
I wonder
Like
what it
he
would.
changed because like in this one, I got it. Just he's like smiling right here. He's got normal teeth, but then I remember in other scenes he's got like real, like a bunch of sets of teeth, and they're real like sharp and pointy like a shark.
Yeah, it's man, it was creepy. Hello, Georgie. I don't know, but
In this one, it's
awesome movie.
Oh my god.
And like it wasn't. I'm trying to think like, because we talked about this off air during breakfast, but I feel like horror movies can have a big tendency to suck. Like horror movies can be awful, and it's the corny jump scares and stuff. And like this movie wasn't even much about the jump scares, and much it was just like Pennywise being a creep.
Yeah.
And
So I just watched both like scenes from it where I just watched both scenes from like the 1990 and 2017. So they made a subtle difference that Nick pointed out where I think you said it on air or maybe back in the cafe when we were having this discussion where the death is not really portrayed that much where when Georgie goes in to go get the boat,
They just
the
cut
boat.
it.
Oh yeah, in the old one.
Yeah, the old one. He just gets pulled.
Yeah.
He gets pulled down.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
in this one, it's just like he goes straight for the arm and then just like gets dragged out. Dragged to the sewer.
Definitely. And then you said they opened the movie with that scene.
that was probably like the second scene. The first scene was just Georgie and his older brother like making the boat. So yeah, we really went right into it.
yeah,
And,
that's kind of like the old one.
Yeah. I mean, the movie, it has a good, it's pretty cool too, man. Like, there's parts where I don't know if the audience, everyone picks up on it, but even like Georgie or not Georgie, but like a character will be walking through the living room and the TV will be on. And in the TV, if you listen, it'll be saying things like, hey, the TV will be talking to the character and the character won't even notice. The character will walk by it, but it's creepy because like he'll be walking by and like the TV will say like, I'm coming for you. Like, but like the it's not like
it's
super
subtle.
Yeah,
it's like those subtle things that
creepy.
Sounds creepy.
Yeah, creepy
make it
movie. Great
interesting.
movie. I mean, the story too is pretty good. Like it's a good story. I really want to read the book, but I know it's like 1,200 pages. Because I mean, and I've tried to read. I've read a little bit of Stephen King, as I think he's a phenomenal writer. At least he used to be. I haven't read his recent stuff.
I didn't even know he still writes.
Yeah, but my headphones are freaking out. But I tried reading The Stand, which was like the first transcript of that book. Stephen King, it was like 7,000 pages.
God.
And they were like, dude, you have to cut this back. And he was like, what? Come on, man. And then he cut it down to like, fine, I'll cut it down to like 2,500 pages. But like it has the record for the biggest book ever like submitted to a publisher. And I know it's like 1,200 pages, but I want to read that bad. Because man, the book's got such a better feel than the movie. Yeah, I love when people do that. Man, Harry Potter's not the same in the movies.
Mike,
It's still a good movie.
Yeah,
I actually have a question because we've both played this game. Metro 2033. When we're talking about like translations from a book to like any other form of entertainment, but do you play the game, right?
Yeah.
How much did you enjoy it?
I loved it, and the story was phenomenal.
No,
and it was spooky, man. It was a spooky game. Yeah,
I do have the book and I've read it, and it's interesting to me when I play it. It's just the fact that like it translates so well. Making this book into a movie would make. I think it would take a lot of things out of it, but making it into a video game, it made you more it made you feel more for the characters and be more interactive with the world than like just reading from the book.
I mean, you got to think if you're someone who's like creating a story, you got to love this day and age because you have so many different venues to use it for, and people think like don't knock a video game for like story If that could be perfect for certain stories, and now you have audiobooks, you have all these different, you have books, you have movies, you have radio. I mean, not radio,
everything.
but not mainstream radio. Anyways,
You can stream.
there's so many different ways you can do it, and it's this summer I would try listening to 3D radio. It's a crazy science. It's they use a certain kind of microphone, and it picks up like 3D sound.
Oh.
So if you put the headphones on, turn the lights off, and close your eyes.
Oh, it feels like you're right there.
Literally feels like you're right there.
Yeah.
Oh,
and it's really cool, and it's almost like super immersive. I think it's more immersive than anything else I've experienced.
I mean, I remember my in like middle school, my friend was like, "Listen to this 3D sounds video with headphones on and close your eyes."
Was it the barbershop thing?
No,
that's
it
like
was
the big one.
Really, I bet it feels like you're probably getting a haircut.
Yeah.
Your brain like tricked you or whatever.
It was
it was like someone was like walking behind you, and then there was like the wind like blowing the leaves around in the trees, like. Sounded like you were right there.
Yeah, it's
sounded like it was
crazy.
happening. And like
It's neat.
the thing was about the 3D sound that I found so interesting, you can like hear it like in certain areas, like you can hear like something behind you, and like through it sounds like a weird concept because like when you're listening through music through headphones, you can't like hear the music behind you, but like these sounds are like so pure.
It's
or whatever.
crazy, and it's a relatively new. It's not a new technology, but it's relatively new to be used.
Yeah.
So it's I think people are still a little unfamiliar with it. It's pretty crazy, and I'll send you guys a link later. One of the demos is like you're in a barbershop.
Yeah.
It's actually like there's points where you're like, dude, is this guy like behind me? If you close your eyes, and you like really take it in.
It's weird, right?
It's kind of creepy. But so this summer, I tried listening to some horror 3D.
Oh my god.
Audio. It was only like 6 minutes long because they're all kind of demos these days. I think it's expensive to do, but it was scary. Like you're sitting there and you're thinking like, I don't know, I don't know why I was listening to that like 1 a.m. when I'm trying to go to bed, but it was creepy, man. It was creepy. But yeah, back to why I'm saying this. There's so many different, what's the artistic word? Mediums.
Yeah, so many mediums.
So many mediums to be using these days.
Great
so,
word.
And it's very interesting, just again, the fact that, like, now there's more development in everything that we're digesting with entertainment. Where it is video games, where it's now become just a thing where it's like, oh, this is just for kids. Now it's being like now there's like great stories being told that are meant for adults.
You know what I really feel like was the first video game, well, not the first video game to do that at all, but one of the ones to kind of make it a mainstream thing, like having a really deep story, was the Telltale Games Walking Dead.
Yes.
Did you play that?
No.
I loved that, man. I went through it like twice. That came out, what, 2000, was it 14, 13?
Yeah,
I think we were seniors in high school. I think we were juniors or seniors. I think it was the summer between when I played it, and like I played in like a week.
Yeah,
flew through it. It was awesome. It was so cool, you know. And so anyone listening, you know, the Telltale Games Walking Dead series. It's not like a traditional video game where you're gonna press X. Well, you do.
Yeah,
but it's all about the decisions you make, and it's kind of like cool. It was neat. It was cool, man. I really liked it, but yeah, it's just neat to see. You know?
Video games has like really matured as an art form in which now it went less. It went from less like killing Nazis to telling a more interactive story where they tell the stories of these characters. A great example of like this evolution is the new Call of Duty. I don't know if you guys seen the new story trailer for it.
No, the World War II.
The stories are
I played the beta.
Games.
It's sweet.
Yeah, there's a story. They just released a new story trailer in which for anybody who doesn't want to get any minor spoilers, just stop listening for a minute. But in the story trailer, they have you and another character standing in a line.
This is World War II, right?
Yeah, World War II.
Yeah.
Standing in a line while German officers walking by, and the other guy's telling you, take off your dog tags right now.
Are you undercover?
No. You're a prisoner.
Oh.
They don't want you. He's like, take off your dog tags right now. They're looking for Jews.
Yeah.
And right at that scene, like the German officer's walking up to you, and he's just like looking for that dog tag that just says Jewish descent.
Yeah, so you're
and right after that, you're being brought onto onto a rail cart, which you can only presume it's either going to be a concentration camp or it's going to be a POW camp.
Yeah.
But it is interesting when you see that development where Call of Duty went from just being a normal story of like just fighting World War II to now being a more emotional story of a character who's 18 years old, just got enlisted.
Historical, yeah.
Well, I feel like, too, now they have the graphics to do that. You know?
Yeah.
'Cause before, you need, like, a bunch of blocky people. Like, it's kind of hard I'm sure, to get into, like, the story with that. But Call of Duties are pretty nuts. You know, like, they, I haven't played them in a while, but, you know, they goes into slow motion. It's like a hostage shootout.
Yeah. But I think the one Call of Duty game that still sticks with me is Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare.
Yeah, that's the one they remastered.
Yeah, it's the one that they remastered, and it's insane because I remember when I first played it, I was like 12 years old, and all of a sudden, like, you're trying to save this helicopter pilot, and as you're getting out of this Iraqi town, or not an Iraqi town, a Middle Eastern town, a nuke just drops off.
Are you saying all Middle Easterns are Iraqi?
No. But just a nuke goes off, and like you're just
dude. I'll never forget the end of Modern Warfare 2, the sequel to that one, when you have to you just got shot and you're laying on the ground. There's like a throwing knife, in a hostage situation in like slow motion, and you gotta like hit the guy with the throwing knife or like your buddy while he's like at gunpoint, and it's crazy stuff.
It really is interesting with those games and how they do like these very subtle scenes that you get so involved with. Like let it be the nuke scene, the airport scene. Remember that one?
Oh my god! That was
mission.
That was the one you just like not. You can just like mow down.
I saw that recently.
It's called like "Don't Be Russian" or something. It's like
no Russian.
No Russian.
Yeah, and you're playing as the Russian guys.
Exactly. You're playing like as the Russians.
Yeah, that was pretty nuts.
It's crazy.
That was pretty nuts. I remember that.
And that, like, it's not, in a way, I mean, like, we were young when we were playing that. Like, it's not right.
Just gunning down civilians. Yeah, it was crazy.
You know why the name of the mission is No Russian?
Why?
Because they don't have you speak Russian in that mission because it's supposed to, like, implement that Americans did this attack. But it's just insane. This whole, like, that whole...
Subliminal messaging right there to the finest.
Yes, Professor Search is in the building right now, in the
hype
studio.
Factor.
So, Yeah, so a break in 30 seconds, and then we'll come back and we'll get right into some science, baby.
All right.
Which I'm very excited about.
You guys seen American Vandal? Oh, we still have like 20 seconds. You got to check it out. I highly suggest it.
Is it on Netflix?
Yeah, it's a new Netflix show. It's a really good one. It's interesting.
Hey, Professor,
It's a good parody on it's a good parody on everything, on like true crime series.
Oh.
It's really funny.
Oh wait, is that the one?
Jimmy Tatro.
Jimmy Tatro, yeah.
All right, so we'll catch you after this break.
Thinking about updating your bathroom? Then you should consider installing a new ventilation fan from Panasonic. Combining beauty and high performance, the Panasonic Whisper Recessed LED fan hides a powerful yet quiet ventilation fan behind an elegant recessed LED light. It's so quiet you'll only know it's working because of the clean, fresh air in your bathroom. This stylish all-in-one design offers the quietest, energy-efficient fan-light combination available. For over 20 years, Panasonic ventilation fans have been providing families with cleaner, healthier environments. That's why they were recognized by Energy Star for the 8th straight year, winning the 2017 Sustained Excellence Award. View the entire line of indoor air quality and ventilation solutions at us.panasonic.com/ventfans. That's us.panasonic.com/ventfans. Panasonic ventilation fans are available for purchase on Amazon.
People all over the country join AmeriCorps Vista to build their community while they build their career.
AmeriCorps Vista provides a huge network with a lot of different opportunities, so you can find the position that works for you. It's a great opportunity to meet friends. It's a great opportunity to learn job skills.
AmeriCorps Vista members address poverty through economic development, education, youth mentorship, and more.
What motivated me to join AmeriCorps Vista was really just being able to give back to the community which I represent.
We can all kind of work together, work to our strengths, and create this network.
That allows me to be giving back to the community. We are allowing our next generation to be sustained.
Learn how you can build your community and your career at AmeriCorps.gov/Vista. That's AmeriCorps.gov/Vista.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Roundup podcast. We have Professor Bob Search in the studio with us, ready to talk some science. And real quick, have you seen it, Professor?
The old version, yes. I haven't seen the new one.
It's good, yeah. I saw it last night. It was phenomenal. Yeah, if you want, you can put the headphones in. You don't have to, or whatever you're comfortable with, and you can feel free to move the mic around and do what you got to do. So I know yesterday when we had spoken, you were talking about there was a satellite that had crashed.
That's the Cassini probe, and it's been it's a big deal. It's a big deal in astronomy. This probe was launched off of a Centaur 4 rocket in 1997. And it used two gravitational slingshot assists off of the planet Venus and the planet Jupiter. And it eventually reached the Saturn system. It was launched in 1997, and it reached Saturn in 2004. And it's spent the last 13 years exploring Saturn and all of its moons. Saturn has a ring system that's quite visible through a telescope. All of the so-called gas giants have ring systems, but the most pronounced one is the one governing Saturn. The ring system is extremely wide. It extends as far out from the planet Saturn as the moon extends. The moon is 240,000 miles away from the Earth on average. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the ring system in Saturn extends about 240,000 miles. Wow. And although it's very, very wide, it's very, very thin. It's no more than 100 feet thick.
What is it made out of, the rings?
Ice particles, mostly.
Oh, so it's ice.
And for our viewers at home, the ring you're talking about is, of course, the
ring, the
stereotypical ring aroround Saturn, right?
Yep.
Okay.
That's that. Yeah.
How?
Go ahead.
Oh, how fast is this satellite moving? Because I always thought that like to travel to, different planets beyond the length of us from Mars would take like decades. Like how fast was it moving?
Well, it took the Cassini probe 7 years to reach Saturn, traveling on the average, I would say, at about 20,000 miles per hour.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Now, what powers that? Like you said, the gravitational.
Well, what happens is once you escape Earth's gravitation, you need a lot of force to escape Earth's gravitation.
Yeah.
And once that happens, and the rocket's going to be traveling at a tremendous speed. And once they shoot the Cassini probe off of it, it's going to be traveling at the same speed. And then you have Newton's law of inertia, which says that if there are no other forces involved and you set something going at a certain velocity, it's going to stay at that velocity forever until it encounters another force. Like with Earth, the reason why it doesn't happen here is because of the force gravitation. Okay, if you drive a car at 60 miles an hour and you put your foot off the brake, it's going to slow down because of the force of gravity and friction, etc. But if it's in space and you're going 60 miles an hour, you're going to go 60 miles an hour forever or until you encounter either a star or a planet with the gravitational force. So once Cassini got pushed out, it was going at about 20,000 miles an hour.
That's
and
insane.
in addition, it took, before it reached Saturn, it took two swings around the planet Venus and another swing around the planet Jupiter. And when you get close enough to a large body with large gravitational force, like, say, the planet Jupiter, if you hit it in a certain angle, you can use the force of gravity as a slingshot, and you could get another boost. Of gravity. So the probe actually did that, and it's a tremendous feat of engineering. For
I was going to say that's incredible.
You can look at Saturn in the sky. Saturn's visible in the sky on not all the time during the year, but it's visible in the sky.
Yeah.
You can't just point a rocket at. You can't say, look at Saturn and say, okay, I'm going to shoot my rocket into there. You got to figure out where Saturn's going to be 7 years from now.
Yeah.
Now, the Saturn system, on the average, is about 1 billion miles away from us. And the average distance of the Earth from the Sun is 93 million miles. You tack 3 more zeros on that, and that's how far away Saturn is.
Insane. This is not too unrelated, but this is. I mean, I was reading this a little while ago, and I guess people have this. I don't want to say a theory, but people think it's just this vast open space, right? But our orbit apparently is filled with so much debris and trash that actually, I was watching a video on it as a short little clip, but there's so much excess debris and things from satellites from back in the 50s and things that actually, when they launch satellites and rockets and things, they actually have to plan around the trash. I don't know if you know the video I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar. There's a lot of junk floating.
That's crazy.
Around space, floating around Earth.
I didn't know that.
Is it all from satellites and things, or is that from even just ejecting trash into space?
Most of it's man-made. I doubt if anybody's putting trash in space. Actual trash, but there have been a lot of satellites launched since 1957. The first Sputnik. Which caused the national. I was 10 years old at the time. It caused the national scare because people were afraid that the Russians were going to conquer space.
Yeah.
Oh, have you ever read the book? I think it's called Rocket Boys, or it's about the kids who get inspired by Sputnik and they build their own rocket in like a coal mining town.
I didn't read it, but
you've heard of it.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a really good book.
Yeah,
that just reminded me of that for some reason.
When that was going on, and Sputnik was launched into space, what did people think was going to happen? Like, what in particular? Did they think
Well, there was a tremendous in the 50s. There was it was the beginnings of what was called the Cold War, and at the time, both the United States and the Russians were both in the process of developing nuclear weapons, and even in 1960, I can remember I thought the world was going to end because the Russians exploded a 50 megaton bomb somewhere in Siberia.
Yeah.
Which actually created seismic. They recorded it as an earthquake, and eventually this led to nuclear proliferation, and basically both the Russians and the United States realized that if we begin World War III, at least according to one person to describe it, World War III would last 40 or 50 years. The first hour would be fought with nuclear weapons. The rest of the years would be fought with sticks and bones.
Insane.
Because and we came close in October of 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
I can remember.
I couldn't even imagine being alive.
I was
It's too crazy.
I was a sophomore in high school, and I can remember my theology teacher, Brother Syriac, walks into the room at around 1:30 in the afternoon, and he looks at us and says, by 4 o'clock this afternoon, none of us may even be here anymore.
Imagine hearing that.
Okay, I went to Chaminade High School in Mineola, New York, and it was a Catholic school. And every afternoon, this lonely priest would sit in the confessional booth, waiting for people to come and hear confessions. And he would be there every day.
Yeah,
and on average, maybe one person would show up in a week. That afternoon, there was a half-mile line of students waiting to have their confession heard.
Yeah. I mean, if you hearing that, you're probably, geez, that's crazy.
Yeah. And from a teacher especially, you're like, wow, this has to be.
Oh yeah, everyone was convinced. I mean, it was, but fortunately, we backed off from doing it.
Thankfully.
I also feel like, I mean, this isn't even like this is a widespread thing, but I feel like there can't be another. Because with all the nuclear weapons and things, like, I feel like you can't, more so now than ever, you need, like, peace. I almost feel like, because if there was ever, World War III or something, like, forget it. Like,
everyone
all these
screwed.
nuclear weapons and things, and not to mention what's going to happen to the planet and things like that. So I have a quick question, too. So, my terminology is probably going to be way off, but, so the Earth doesn't rotate like what's the term?
It rotates in a counterclockwise manner.
And it's kind of tilted, right? It's got a tilt to it.
Oh, like it's not on the same.
Yeah, it's at roughly, there's the plane of the ecliptic plane of the solar system. More or less the sun and all the planets are on the same. You could basically put them on a flat table, essentially. And with respect to an average planet, the north and south poles are at a right angle to the ecliptic plane. The Earth's axis is tilted with respect to that at about maybe 23 degrees. And it causes the seasons because of that tilt. When the Earth revolves around the sun, at certain times the northern hemisphere will be closer to the sun than the southern hemisphere. And then when you're on the other side of the sun, the exact opposite happens. So that basically causes the seasons.
Wow.
How much of that tilt is caused from humans? From human events?
It's been in existence. The Earth is like a top. The Earth spins. And there is a phenomenon known as precession. And right now, for untold, humans have been on the Earth for roughly 10,000 years, which is just a drop in the bucket as far as eons are concerned.
Yeah.
Okay, the age of the universe is estimated at 13 billion years.
Wow.
The age of the solar system is estimated to be 4.5 billion years, roughly and we've only been around for 10,000 years, so it's real. And right now, the axis, the tilted axis of the Earth points towards the star Polaris, which we know is the North Star. And the Earth is kind of like a top, because when you spin a top, eventually it starts going back and forth, back and forth. The same thing is going to happen relative to the Earth, which means that in some time from now, the axis is not going to be pointing towards Polaris. It's going to be pointing actually towards this star. There's a star Vega in the constellation Lyra. That's going to become the new North Star.
And just because of how it's the tops.
The physics and stuff.
And, well, that's probably not going to be in our lifetime. Or
it's going to be approximately 25,000 years from now.
Wow.
Yeah. But with respect to us, all of the stars, and the solar system is a very small portion of the Milky Way galaxy. And the Milky Way galaxy is estimated to contain something on the order of 200 billion stars. That's in the Milky Way galaxy.
So
and we found out relatively recently, specifically January the 1st, 1925, there was an astronomer named Edwin Hubble who was studying what he thought were their cloud-like objects, that you could see through a telescope, that they referred to as nebula. And he studied these nebula, and he noticed that there were stars within the nebula. And these stars are known as Cepheid variables. And you can, again, I don't want to get into the physics of it, but you can use Cepheid variables to estimate how far away these clouds are from us. So up until January the 1st, 1925, we thought the universe was all the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. And we estimated there was another astronomer named Harlow Shapley who figured out that the Milky Way galaxy is like a big pinwheel. And it's roughly 100,000 light years in diameter. Now, a light year is not a unit of time. It's a unit of distance. It's the distance that light travels in a year. Now, nothing travels faster than the speed of light. The speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. And that's the speed of any light, and when you shine any light, it travels at 186,000 miles per second. When you do a television transmission or this radio transmission, it automatically travels into space somewhere at 186,000 miles per second.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That is incredible.
So, what was I saying? I do this all the time.
That's why we wanted you on here.
A light year is approximately the distance light travels in a year. And very roughly, it's about 6 trillion miles. That's 6 followed by 12 zeros. And they estimate that the width of the Milky Way galaxy is about 100,000 light years.
You need to think of
that. When Hubble studied these clouds and studied these and figured out the distance of these, we all thought that these clouds, or astronomers thought that the clouds were something within the Milky Way galaxy. And up until 1925, we thought that our universe was the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. But Edwin Hubble discovered that these little clouds, when he figured out the actual distance of the stars within these clouds, these clouds were on the order of millions of light years away from and he figured out that these clouds were galaxies in and of themselves. So as of January the 1st, 1925, our conception of the universe expanded tremendously. Okay. And we now know that there are probably as many galaxies in the universe as there are stars in our own Milky Way galaxy. And that's why the Hubble Space Telescope was named after him. When he originally gave his he gave a presentation, a speech in Washington, an astronomers convention, January the 1st, 1925. He had one of his graduate assistants give the speech because he gave the excuse that he was working in an observatory in California. But the real reason why he didn't give the speech personally was he was afraid of possible ridicule from the other astronomers. Because his findings were so fantastic.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, they were scientifically verifiable.
We have to go on break, and when we get back, we'll get right into some... Oh, no. That's why we wanted you on. And we'll be back after the short break.
Coming from the Lackland Center at Centenary University, WNTI.org streams the best online programming from our staff, students, faculty, and volunteers. Click on the Listen Live button on our website or find us with the TuneIn Radio app on your mobile device. It's WNTI.org.
Hi, this is KDO, host of KDO Radio. Tune in Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. for a mix of alternative, including indie, ska, and punk. So join me Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on WNCI.org, the internet voice of Centenary University.
Get ready to be transported back in time as Centenary Stage Company welcomes Ensemble Chacon in Measure for Measure, the music of Shakespeare's plays on Sunday, September 24th at 2 p.m. in the Lackland Performing Arts Center. Hailed for vitality and character, style and verve, Ensemble Chacon displays versatility and dramatic flair in everything from love songs and comic antics to madness and tragedy, featuring music by leading composers of Shakespeare's time with selections from As You Like It, Twelfth Night, Henry V, The Winter's Tale, The Tempest, Hamlet, Othello, and Macbeth, all performed on Renaissance-era instruments. Tickets for Ensemble Chacon's Measure for Measure, the music of Shakespeare's plays are $22.50 for adults and $15 for children under 12 in advance. $5 more on the day of the performance. They're available online at centenarystageco.org or by phone at 908-979-0900. Don't miss the perfect Elizabethan evening with Ensemble Chacon in Measure for Measure, the music of Shakespeare's plays. Sunday, September 24th at Centenary Stage Company's Lackland Performing Arts Center.
Vic, whenever you're ready. And welcome back. You're listening to the Roundup Podcast. We are in studio with Professor Search, and we're talking all things science right now. And off air, we were just talking about, at least for me personally, it's like when you start discussing these things, I just can't help but be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I can't even believe
like
it.
When you think of just origin theories and just how it all began, and you think of it's insane. And I was reading this thing. It's a phenomenon with astronauts, where it's when they're in the space station, or when they're just in orbit, and you see the Earth from not being on Earth. There's this phenomenon where they get this insane perspective on life and things. And I forget there's a term for it. I'll have to look it up, but it's like to look at the Earth when you're not on it, and and see how just. And you're seeing everything from that perspective. How it just gives you this crazy perspective on life and things.
Yeah, it really makes you think. One of my favorite quotes comes from Carl Sagan from the original Cosmos shows, and when he's talking about the little blue dot.
Little blue dot. That's the. It was a picture taken by the Voyager spacecraft after it passed the orbit of the planet Neptune, and it's now in outer. I mean, it's outside the solar system right now. It could still transmit and take pictures. So it took a picture of our solar system, and you could just see an elliptical kind of cloud, and with this little blue dot somewhere in the middle of the cloud, which is planet Earth.
So I actually have a question about the Voyager and a lot of the satellites we sent back then. How exactly does the data get transmitted, and how long does it take for those transmissions to get to us?
Well, the Cassini probe that I was talking
Mm-hmm.
about previously transmits at the speed of light, and it's just like it transmits photographs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I'm not familiar with the electronics involved,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the same thing. When you transmit something, it's the same thing like what we're transmitting right now.
Okay.
So the Cassini spacecraft would regularly, over the 13 years
Mm-hmm.
that it went around the moons and all the Saturn has a very intricate moon system.
Yeah.
And they adjusted. The technology involved is fantastic, but not only could the Cassini probe just rotate around the planet Saturn, it could shoot off and go around the main moons of Saturn. But when it transmits those photographs and transmits the data, it travels at the speed of light.
Yeah.
Saturn is roughly 1 billion miles away from us, so it takes about 90 minutes for those transmissions to reach Earth.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a similar probe called the New Horizons probe.
Mm-hmm.
And in the summer of 2015, that probe it took 9 years. It was launched in 2006, and it reached the dwarf planet Pluto. And I'm very upset at that, because in 2006, the planet, what I know as the planet Pluto, was demoted by astronomers. It became a dwarf planet.
Was there outrage? Everyone's
yes.
Come on, what the hell?
I'm still upset.
Yeah,
but they were
big fan of Pluto.
Wondering if the mission succeeded, and if they were going to get information from the planet Pluto. It took 5.5 hours for those transmissions to reach planet Earth.
Oh my God!
They didn't know until 5 and because they knew that there was. It was a very limited window when the New Horizons probe flew by the planet Pluto.
Yeah.
They couldn't do the same thing that they did with Cassini, because it was just too far away. So they could only do like a flyby, like the Voyagers did in the 1980s. The Voyagers it was Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 were launched in 1977. And they were designed to take advantage of a unique configuration of the so-called outer gas giants. And it was they knew that the planets were going to be in a certain alignment, so that they could take advantage of gravitational boosts off of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And they reached. Those probes were, again, traveling roughly at 20,000 miles an hour. I might be off on that number.
Yeah.
But the two probes reached the planet Jupiter in 1979, 2 years after they were launched. 2 years later, it reached the planet Saturn. And then what they did was, at that time, they originally both Voyagers were going to go past all four so-called gas giants. But they adjusted the Voyager 1 probe when it hit Saturn, when it hit the Saturn system, because one of the moons of Saturn, it's the moon Titan, and it's the only moon in the solar system with a significant atmosphere, which makes it of great interest to astronomers. And they wanted to get a close-up picture of Titan. And in order to do that, they had to adjust the course of Voyager 1 so that instead of proceeding out to the other planets, it would in order to get a close look at Titan, it would have to adjust it so that its path was at right angles to the solar system. So Voyager 1 right now is the furthest man-made object away from Earth.
Yeah,
it's roughly it was launched in '77. It's been traveling for over 40 years now. It's about 13 billion years, 13 billion miles away from us now.
Wow.
That's insane.
And Voyager, and it also, when it made the adjustment and got its close-up picture of Titan, scientists were very frustrated because all they saw was an orange ball. They could not see it's essentially, Titan is a smog-covered planet, so they couldn't get a good look at the surface.
Yeah.
Which was the impetus eventually for the Cassini mission, which was launched in 1997, several years later.
So before we move on and discuss aliens, I want to touch. So I was mentioning earlier that phenomenon with astronauts. It's called the overview effect, and it's described as a cognitive shift in awareness after seeing our planet, quote, hanging in the void. And it occurs when you're flung so far away from Earth that you become totally overwhelmed and awed by the fragility and unity of life on our blue globe in the grand scheme of things. I just think that's a very fascinating event. Or,
to add on to that, but Riley, my old roommate, he always said whenever we were walking through campus, we're just objects on a big floating rock in the middle of space.
Yeah, I mean...
And I couldn't even imagine
being
actually
in space
seeing that. Yeah.
Well, one of the most incredible pictures taken from space was taken in 1968 when there was a series when man eventually landed on the moon on July 20th of 1969. That was the Apollo 11 flight, the Apollo series. So there were 10 previous series before that, and one of them was they wanted to make sure that they could at least go to the moon and come back safely. That was Apollo, I believe it was Apollo 8. That probe, or that Apollo mission, was designed to just orbit the moon and then go back to Earth, just to see. They did it in stages.
To see it.
They took a picture of the Earth from the moon in Christmas of 1968, and it's one of the most. You just see this blue marble rising. It was
Apollo 8. You said
Apollo 8. It was like the sun rising in the east.
Wow,
but it was just this beautiful blue ball above the.
Is that the one right there?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's crazy.
That's it right there.
Did you see that, Nick?
Yeah, wow, that's incredible.
Vic, that's what
insane.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like, in a weird sense, and again, I'm not trying to get too sidetracked. I say this I almost feel like when you see these, when you're with this effect, right? When you're looking at the Earth from not on the Earth, from the moon or whatever it may be, I almost feel like, with science being involved, I almost feel like it would give certain people like even more reason to believe in like a greater power and things like that. But we don't have to get too much into that. But so let's get back to was it Titan and potential?
Titan, yeah.
Is that now that the atmosphere on there? Is that potentially habitable for life, or?
Well, the smog that covers, and it's basically if you look at Titan under normal photography, all you're going to see is a big a big orange ball. And several years ago, I was in China, and it was Thanksgiving. Yep, there it is.
Yep.
And I was in Beijing, and it was a cloudless afternoon. And I looked up at the sky, and the sky was orange because of the smog involved.
Really?
Wow.
And it looked almost like Titan does the normal.
That's how bad
telescopes.
the smog is in China?
Yeah, pretty much.
What year was that?
That was 2006.
I can imagine it's only even worse now.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But at any rate, getting back to this guy, the smog is composed of what they call carboniferous materials. In other words, some carbon-based materials. And when the Cassini probe was launched, it contained special photography equipment that could, in effect, see through the smog. So one of the things they did when the Cassini probe started exploring the Saturn system was they got a lot of close-up pictures of Titan with this special photography. And if you look at Titan through that special photography, what you'll see is looks like the moon. There's dark areas and light areas, but they discovered that in addition to Titan being the only moon with a significant atmosphere, Titan is also the only place in the solar system outside of Earth that has lakes and rivers.
Yeah.
The only problem is that the lakes and rivers are not rivers of water, because the average Titan is 1 billion miles away from the sun. And that means that,
It's frozen.
along with the planet, is that it's much, much colder than it is on Earth.
Mhm.
Now, on Earth, we know that the ecosystem on Earth is run basically by water in all of its various forms. Above 212 degrees, water is vapor. Between 212 and 32, water is liquid, and below 32, water is solid. A similar phenomenon happens on Titan, okay? But only the average surface temperature of Titan is 350 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. That is unimaginably cold. I mean, if you were on the Enterprise and you were transported to the surface of Titan, your body would probably automatically implode because of the change in temperature. But in that system, water is as hot as a rock.
Yeah.
But methane, which exists as a gas because the Earth is much warmer, methane exists as a gas on Earth. But on Titan, it exists the same way water exists on Earth. In other words, it's vapor, and at that colder temperature, methane is liquid.
Could that sustain?
So it's like a flowing liquid state, like a big river.
Yep, there is
That's crazy.
a lake called the Kraken Mare, which is as big as Lake Superior.
Oh God, it's an incredible discovery, honestly.
Yeah, and it's all methane, and it generates an ecosystem. There are clouds of methane.
Wow.
It rains methane on and I think that Titan is right now. Titan is the way Earth was when life first formed on Earth. It's so cold that.
How big is Titan? Comparable to the Earth.
Titan is, I'd say, it's smaller than the Earth. Mm-hmm. It's bigger than it's bigger than the planet Mercury. Mercury is right now it's the smallest planet in the solar system. It's I don't know how much bigger than our moon it is, but it's significantly big. Again, we don't know. We haven't detected any type of life in any form. Mm-hmm. Again, there are going to be other expeditions other than Cassini that are going to explore the Saturn system, and they're actually when Cassini was launched, they attached a big disc, that was like 9 feet in diameter. Yeah. And the disc was called the Huygens probe. And when Cassini started revolving around the planet Saturn, it launched off this little probe, and eventually that probe descended into the atmosphere of Titan, and it landed on Titan, which is an incredible feat of engineering, because that world is literally 1 billion miles away from us.
Yeah, that's insane.
So we have that's the and the Huygens probe. This little disc is still. They only operated for a couple of hours after it landed. Yeah, but it's space junk.
Now, what if Titan is harboring life, and they view that as an act of war? I mean, we're throwing satellites at them.
Well, as far as again, it's been speculated. It's always been an object of speculation as to whether there is intelligent life, at least within the realm of our solar system. Now, if you presume a couple of things, like if there is intelligent life elsewhere in the solar system, And if you assume that life is kind of like us, then somewhere along the line, they're going to discover electricity and how to transmit information electronically. And if there had been really intelligent civilizations within the solar system, the chances are we would have known it. We would have very well. But as late as the beginning of the 20th century, there was considerable speculation as to whether or not there was life on Mars.
Yeah.
And there was an astronomer named Percival Lowell who in 1898 looked at Mars through a telescope, and it looked to him...
We actually have to go on break really quick.
Sure.
And as soon as we come back, we'll get right back into it.
aliens.
Okay. So now we're getting the good stuff, baby. We'll be back.
Stop the press because we've got something exciting for you.
Please tell me
Now, join Ken the Space Fish as we make your summer more 80s alternative. 80X, the alternative 80s, every Monday and Wednesday from 1 to 4 here on WNTI.org, baby.
Get ready to be transported back in time as Centenary Stage Company welcomes Ensemble Chacon in Measure for Measure, the music of Shakespeare's plays on Sunday, September 24th at 2 p.m. in the Lackland Performing Arts Center. Hailed for vitality and character, style and verve, Ensemble Chacon displays versatility and dramatic flair in everything from love songs and comic antics to madness and tragedy, featuring music by leading composers of Shakespeare's time with selections from As You Like It, Twelfth Night, Henry V, The Winter's Tale, The Tempest, Hamlet, Othello, and Macbeth, all performed on Renaissance-era instruments. Tickets for Ensemble Chacon's Measure for Measure, the music of Shakespeare's plays are $22.50 for adults and $15 for children under 12 in advance. $5 more on the day of the performance. They're available online at centenarystageco.org or by phone at 908-979-0900. Don't miss the perfect Elizabethan evening with Ensemble Chacon in Measure for Measure, the music of Shakespeare's plays. Sunday, September 24th at Centenary Stage Company's Lackland Performing Arts Center.
And welcome back. You're listening to the Roundup podcast with the usual crew and Professor Bob Search with us. Now, Professor, if I ask you right off the bat, is there life outside of Earth? What's your answer?
My answer, I would say I'm convinced that the universe is teeming with life.
Yeah.
Okay. As of yet, we have yet to get in contact with any of that life. And part of that is due to the tremendous distances involved. And another thing that still has to be overcome is the fact that when you're dealing with electronic, if you're going to communicate with somebody, if a civilization exists on a star 100 light years away from us, and you try to communicate with that civilization, okay, any radio or TV transmissions is going to take 100 years to get there and 100 years to get back. So if you say hello to somebody 100 light years away, it's going to be 100 years before that hello reaches them, and another 100 years before they reply back.
Like 200 years
under
for a
present,
response.
under the way things.
Now, I have a question.
Yeah.
What exactly do we constitute as intelligent life forms? Because I know I'm a forensic science major. I take a lot of science classes, mainly in biology, and we've discussed what exactly constitutes life. But what would you say constitutes intelligent life?
Well, it's life as we know it. Right now, the only intelligent life form we know of is carbon based.
Yeah.
Okay. We have yet to receive we get stuff there. There are sounds coming from space every day, and we have some of it seems to be random. Other types seem to be methodical, and we have yet to. If you get in real contact with an alien civilization, there's going to be the obvious language, barrier, because chances are they're going to,
they're not going to speak English.
Well, they're not going to speak like us. Well, eventually, I would say if we do discover another civilization, it's where I think the basis of communication is essentially going to be mathematical, because the ideas of mathematics are universal. They transcend. I mean, mathematicians, a French mathematician and an American mathematician would have no real problems communicating with each other because the basis is the same no matter.
Now, how would you communicate mathematically? And I'm sure you could go very detailed into this, but so we can understand, like, what would be the basis of that?
That's a good question. I would say more than likely the basis would be the same as the basis of computer technology.
I think
zeros and ones.
What I can assume is what the basis would probably be. I think the way a conversation would start hypothetically would probably be discussing the distance and trying to prove the distance to each other, saying, well, the distance from your planet to our planet is this distance, and being able to say that also.
Yeah, it would be similar. It would probably be similar to. It took us a very long time for us to figure out how ancient civilizations thought, especially the Babylonians.
Yes,
we work presently. Everybody works on what's called the base 10 system. Okay, that's how everything is run on these days. Back then, the Babylonians. What were they? 2000 BC or 1000
around
BC?
there?
Yeah. They worked on a base 60 system. They worked on a base that was tremendously different from ours.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by base 10, base 60?
Base 10 as in it's an exponent of 10, correct?
Okay.
Yep. And everything with the
bizarre.
Babylonians was in terms of like say when you take a base 10 number like 1234. That's 1,000 plus 200 plus 30 plus 4. With the Babylonians, 1, 2, 3, 4 would be, again, in terms of 1,000 plus 200 plus 30 plus 10. That's 1,000. That's 10 to the third. 200 is 2 times 100. 10 squared. 30 is 10. So everything is in terms of powers of 10. Everything to the Babylonians was in terms of powers of 60.
Why is that?
So we don't know. Yeah. But their entire civilization was based on 60 rather than 10.
Now, I know most...
you can go. SETI.
The search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Now, did you know that they actually have an extra a work effort or a program that's actually still running till this day, where you can download a program onto your laptop, and it processes all the information that's being collected daily.
Yep.
Do you think that having more people involved would help with that, with the search with the organization, or would you say, or would it hinder it a bit?
I would say the two big things that we have to overcome as far as looking for an extraterrestrial intelligence are the time factor and the distance factor. The distance factor is, again, the distances involved when you talk about the universe
are massive and endless.
Yeah, unimaginable. The other thing is time. It could be, I'm convinced personally that the universe is teeming with life. We are... our little solar system is in a very remote section of our own galaxy. And it may be, sometime in the future, we could be in contact with, we probably will be in contact with some type of intelligent civilization like us. However, that sometime in the future could be sometime in the next 50,000 years.
I think that one thing that that would probably help is a change of mind of what we perceive as a universe, where we perceive the universe as this finite thing, where what we see of the universe now is only known as the observable universe.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still growing, it's still endless, in that we still don't know. It's not ending anytime soon from from the pace it's growing.
Yeah. But again, the distance, again, for us, I mean, what's our lifespan? If you're lucky, you live to be 100.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you speak of, well, okay, it'll be real, 25,000 years in the future is real soon as far as you measure the eons are concerned.
But for a human life, it's...
Yeah, because like you said before, like a recent discovery in science, you were talking about from 1925. In terms of science, 1925 is extremely recent.
Oh, yeah. But that's almost 100 years ago.
Yeah, for us.
I have a quick question, too. My brother, he wanted me to ask you this. He said, now he doesn't know if you'd have the answer, but so he wants to know if you can explain non-DNA based life forms. How can there be life that's not based on DNA? I don't know if you'd have that answer, but...
There was speculated way back in 2010. There was an astronomer named Chris McKay, and he was studying what was going on the moon Titan, which was being explored by Cassini at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw that there was some type of chemical exchange that was going on the surface, on the beaches of these methane seas. And he thought that these chemical changes that were detected by Cassini were some evidence of some form of life, but that form of life would not be carbon-based because it was just too cold for carbon-based life to exist.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy speculated that that there was some type of life exchange going on, and he speculated that it might be based on silicon. That there might be some form of silicon-based life on Titan.
What would that
instead of
look like? What would that, if it doesn't have a DNA?
Well,
is it just like a? Would it just be like a?
Well, I think
I don't know.
A way to answer that.
Let me talk.
Yeah, as a Star Trek freak, I can tell you what what a silicon-based life form looks like.
What would that look like?
There's an episode called "Devil in the Dark" where there's this silicon-based thing that looked like a giant turtle that could go through rock.
What was it called? Devil in the Dark?
Devil in the Dark. And the life form was called a Horta.
And that's what it would...
The Horta was protecting its egg. And
this thing here?
Yep, that's it.
It kind of looks like a piece of... I don't know. I don't even know what the heck.
And
Jamie.
It ate through rock.
Oh, wow.
It ate through rock. Yeah.
To also give you a different... somewhat... another answer is also, I think when you talk about DNA, you think of it as just being the genetic makeup of life and everything.
Yeah.
But you also have to realize that what we constitute as life, what we constitute as an organic material, it needs to have carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen.
Oh, yeah.
Those are all the bases that are necessary for what we consider an organic compound or organic organism. And that's something that needs to be taken into account. Just because it might not have DNA doesn't mean it doesn't have all these five constitute of elements.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, we have yet to actually see life forms based on something other than carbon.
Yeah,
but that certainly doesn't mean that it
can't be
happen.
possible.
Oh yeah, it's definitely possible.
So, out of all the mainstream, perceptions we have of aliens, we picture the two eyeballs and the big head and things like that. This is probably a very broad question, but what would an alien life form most likely look like? I know it would depend on the planet and things like that, but what would be like the most realistic depiction of aliens from movies or anything we've seen? Because traditionally we picture like the skinny thing with the big eyes and the big head, and it's this, I don't know.
Yeah, like no nose.
Like how would...
I have a question actually too about even aliens. So ancient aliens. Like people believe, and even my grandparents have a friend, Mr. Hans. He's from I think Turkey, I want to say, and he believes that people in Europe are they're closer to the universe. They're closer to the sun. They in a past life they've gotten like this knowledge from space, basically from aliens. And I know even in the show Ancient Aliens, people like say that the Egyptian gods like could have like secrets basically to alien life form because if you think about the pyramids, some people believe that they've got that power, the technology to build those things through extraterrestrial life or.
Well, it's always been an object of speculation, and again, there's no solid evidence that we have ever been visited upon by aliens in the past. Okay, that doesn't mean to say that it hasn't happened. We just there's no evidence of it. I'd say as far as what an alien would look like, they would probably be humanoid like us, and they'd probably have British accents.
That would be terrifying if aliens land and they come out,
they're
British
replicas.
Well, I was thinking, and I there's no research on this whatsoever, but I was thinking because life on Earth is such like a phenomenon per se that in order for their life to be outside, and you could correct me if any of this is wrong at all, that in order for life to exist even beyond our solar system, it would have to almost take the same track Earth did.
Well, all I can say is look at how diverse life is on Earth itself. Look at how diverse human beings are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so chances are, if there have to be, I would speculate that there has to be carbon-based life elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
There have to be other places like Earth, and so the numbers are just too vast to think otherwise.
Yeah.
So there's bound to be other places like Earth in the Milky Way galaxy, if not in the universe as a whole. But those life forms are probably going to be just as diverse as we are.
Yeah. I remember that I was just reading an article the other day that we've discovered another Goldilocks planet.
Oh yeah, it's called at least the system that I think you're referring to is something called the TRAPPIST system, and it's a very small system of I believe it's seven planets that are orbiting a very small star. The star, the star is the TRAPPIST star. It's the TRAPPIST system, and every star has what's called a Goldilocks system. Okay.
Now, what is that?
That is an area where if a planet is rotating in that area, it's amenable to life. Because if you get too close to a star, the heat and radiation make life impossible, as we know it, impossible. And if you're too far out, the extreme cold would make life impossible. And our solar system has a so-called Goldilocks area, and it's roughly between the orbits of the planet Venus and the planet Mars, with Earth right in the center. We are in the center of our little Goldilocks system. And with respect to this TRAPPIST system, they think that all 7 stars are within the Goldilocks system. Now, it's a very small system because I believe the 7 planets and the star itself is so small that if it's almost the size of the planet Jupiter. And it's speculated that if Jupiter were any larger, then that's the largest planet. And if Jupiter were any larger, the gravitational forces would cause gravitational collapse and it would become a star. This star, the TRAPPIST star, is massive enough to form a star, but it's really not very much bigger than our planet Jupiter. Its Goldilocks zone is very compressed. And all of these 7 planets are within the Goldilocks system of the TRAPPIST star. And all told, if you put the TRAPPIST system on top of our solar system, it would be contained within the orbit of the closest planet, Mercury. Okay, but we think there could be some type of there might be. They think one of the planets is that's orbiting the TRAPPIST system might contain water, liquid water.
Yeah.
Now, this is a very broad question, too, but so maybe we're going to have to continue after the break for it. But let's say, do we think that, we picture aliens and there's being this sort of War of the Worlds type deal. Do we think would we expect aliens to be aggressive if there was contact? Is there a reason to believe that? You know?
Yeah. Do you think they like humans? Would they have a competitive nature or like? You don't even. Yeah, it's unimaginable, probably, right? Yeah.
There was the first instinct is to think that they are that they would be aggressive because I mentioned before Percival Lowell. He observed the planet Mars, saw these green streaks on Mars, and interpreted the streaks as being canals. And canals are things that are made by intelligent. Canals are not natural
occurrences.
They're made by intelligent creatures. So he actually drew the canals. As it turns out, the canals turned out to be canyons. Okay. However, his back in 1898 or 1900.
Hey Vic, let's go on break real quick, and then we can finish the show off
Sure.
with no break. And this is a great discussion right here. So we'll be back.
Like all living things, your family needs clean, fresh air and a safe environment in order to thrive, indoors and out. That's why the right bathroom fan matters. No bathroom renovation or update is complete without a state-of-the-art ventilation fan from Panasonic, a brand you have come to expect for high-quality products. For over 20 years, Panasonic's ultra-quiet, high-performance, energy-efficient fans have helped to provide families with cleaner, healthier environments. That's why Panasonic has been recognized by Energy Star for the 8th straight year, winning the 2017 Sustained Excellence Award. Find the right ventilation fan for your family at us.panasonic.com/ventfans. That's us.panasonic.com/ventfans. Panasonic ventilation fans are available for purchase on Amazon.
A college security officer called to tell me there was a drinking party on campus. The officer said there had been excessive drinking, and our son was in the hospital for alcohol poisoning. He said my husband and I should come as soon as we could. I knew my son would face distractions and temptations when he went away to school. He already had unfortunate experiences with alcohol, and he was a little too good at fitting in with the crowd. I had no idea things could get so much worse, so fast. A nurse suggested we attend Al-Anon family groups, even though our son claimed his drinking was no big deal. He said he was not an alcoholic and that he could quit whenever he wanted. I didn't want to go to an Al-Anon meeting, but I'm sure glad I went. Is someone's drinking troubling you? You might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4AL-ANON or go to alanon.org.
And welcome back. You're listening to the Roundup podcast. Off air, Professor Search was just connecting full circle H.G. Wells to Mars. Let's definitely get into that right now.
When Percival Lowell mapped he actually drew a map of the canals on Mars. So when he drew that map, it led to considerable speculation by people as to whether or not there was some type of intelligent life on Mars. And sometime later, in 1906, H.G. Wells wrote his novel War of the Worlds. And that was about Mars invading the Earth.
Yeah.
And the basic premise was that Mars was getting too cold and all the other planets were uninhabitable, so the Martians looked upon Earth with envy and greed and invaded the Earth. And there were, and again, for the longest time there was speculation that there was life on Mars. And in 1938, a young director by the name of Orson Welles, who was working in radio, decided to do a radio performance
I know the
of
story,
the novel War of the Worlds. And
People were going nuts, right?
Back then, radio was what television is now. Okay, everybody, or I don't know, I don't even know what it is now. But when I grew up, everybody watched television. In the 1930s, everybody listened to the radio.
Yeah.
And he broadcast his War of the Worlds presentation on Halloween night. It was a Sunday, October 31st, 1938. I hope I got that right.
Pretty sure that's right.
And on Sunday night on the radio, the popular shows were variety shows.
Yeah.
And that was what everybody, you know, the War of the Worlds was a fringe show. You know, only people like nerds like me would listen to it. But even I wasn't around back then.
Mm-hmm.
But most people listened to the variety shows. And what they would do is they would do the same thing that people do nowadays. They would, whenever commercials came on, they would switch over to other channels. And when Orson Welles presented his Worlds, he presented it as a reporter, and he began the play. The play began was, this is John Smith reporting from Grover's Mill, New Jersey, where we've just had there has been a meteor crash on Grover's Mill, and they kept doing the play as if it were an actual radio broadcast. So when these people were switching around, channel hopping, and from their variety shows, they tuned in on this, and they assumed it was the real thing. They assumed that there was they're listening to his they're listening to this guy say, oh my God, these creatures are emerging on tripods from and people thought it was real. It caused a national panic. And I have a friend of mine who currently has a coffee shop in Princeton Junction, which is right near Grover's Mill, where they
I actually live like right there.
Yeah, and he showed me the war machines. If any of you have seen the Steven Spielberg version of War of the Worlds,
is that the one with Tom Cruise?
With Tom
Yes.
Cruise, yeah. Well, that was very faithful to the novel because there were two versions of the War of the Worlds movies. There was one in 1953 where the war machines were these plane-like things that hovered, but the war machines in the Tom Cruise version were these tripods that somehow came up from the ground. We don't know how they got there to begin with, but they came up. And my friend Frank, who owns this, it was called Grover's Mill Cafe, which is, he's there now. He showed me a water tower. And if you're familiar with the Spielberg version, these tripods, these machines look like giant water towers. And he actually showed me bullet marks on the because people, there was such a panic that there were people who took pot shots at the water tower thinking it was a tripod.
That's crazy. Yeah. This panic, was this all in just one night, like a time frame of 2 hours or something?
It was nationwide.
And the thing was, it was hard to stop because the only way to stop it was through radio. So if you weren't listening,
people heard that probably. Oh
yeah,
my God,
and the thing was, the newspaper at the time, like they had no relation to what was going on the radio. It was a story. It was like.
Yep.
Yeah, it was like literally if they read like a Harry Potter book on the air, and people thought it was actually going on.
That's insane.
It's incredible, the power of radio.
People were actually shooting at the water towers.
Yeah.
That's hysterical.
And there was actually a follow through from in real life. In the novel War of the Worlds, the Martians landed. The Martians basically decimated everything, but they all died because they were not immune to the bacteria that we've grown that we've gotten immune to. So literally, the Martians got sick and died.
Yeah,
because their immune systems they had no immune systems for disease, and that kind of brings me about to what happened with the Cassini probe. The Cassini probe, which is presently orbiting the planet Saturn, last Friday it died. Last Friday they deliberately aimed Cassini towards the atmosphere of Saturn, and dove it into the atmosphere of Saturn, where it burned up like a meteor. And they did it for two reasons. One reason was that they wanted to get a close-up look at Saturn's atmosphere. The other reason was because it was eventually losing fuel, and once Cassini, uses up all its fuel, they'd lose control where they would lose control of its motion, and they were afraid that if that happened, that the probe might, even though it would not probably, even though the odds were very small, but there was a chance that it could land on either Titan, which I've mentioned before, or this other little world, little moon, Enceladus. Enceladus, when the Huygens probe landed on Titan, it was January of 2005. And while the Huygens probe landed, Cassini was still exploring other worlds, and it took a close flyby of this little moon Enceladus, which is just like a giant. It's like a big snowball, and it's tiny as far as moons go. You could fit all of Enceladus inside the state of Arizona.
Oh,
That's
wow.
how small it is, you know. And when it flew by, it saw something that astounded the scientists, because what they saw emanating from the south pole of this little moon was geysers of warm liquid water. And they had no idea. They knew that Titan was going to be a very weird place, so they were fully prepared to see strange stuff on Titan. But they did not expect these warm water geysers out of Enceladus.
What would that mean?
That means that since it's warm water and it's liquid water, whenever there's liquid water, there's always the possibility of a carbon-based life.
Wow.
So they think that underneath, again, it wouldn't happen on the surface of Enceladus because, again, it's too cold. These geysers, once they erupted, immediately turn into ice. The warm water turns into ice. Half the ice falls back on Enceladus, which makes Enceladus look like a giant snowball. But Enceladus is close enough to Saturn's rings that the other half of, and again, these geysers are in the order of 100 to 200 miles high.
Oh, wow.
Because of the weak gravitational influence of a small body like Enceladus. Like you take Old Faithful, a geyser on Earth, that shoots up a couple of 100 feet. But these geysers on Enceladus emanate out like 150, 200 miles.
Wow.
So some of it falls back on Enceladus. The other, they're close enough to the rings so that it kind of like feeds ice particles into the ring system.
Okay.
So they were afraid that the Cassini probe, if it crash landed on Enceladus, might contaminate the possibility, if life existed, if some type of primitive life existed on Enceladus, they feared that the Cassini probe might contaminate that. And they had the same fear with respect to Titan.
Could you imagine if that actually did happen and there was like, oh my, wow, there's life, and then accidentally we crash a satellite,
and
they all
the whole thing.
die? That would be quite
Professor.
tragic.
Yeah. Well, that's again, that's a consequence of when H.G. Wells wrote The War of the Worlds.
Professor, have we had those scares before where we send a drone, or not a drone, a rover to, say, like Mars? Have we had a scare before where we didn't like disinfect the rover enough before we sent it to Mars?
Yeah, there's always that. There's that kind of fear has existed for a long time. When the astronauts returned from the moon in 1969. They were kept in isolation for 2 weeks. President Nixon visited the astronauts, but he couldn't. He had to speak at them through this. That they were in a plastic tent-like thing, and they were there. They were there for 2 weeks because they were afraid that if the astronauts brought back some type of
virus
germ from the moon, that it was going to infect everybody.
But wait, I thought Mars landing was done by Hollywood.
Yeah.
There's the theory that they never actually landed. I mean, on Moon, and they got those conspiracies.
But
did I say Mars?
Yeah.
Oh, I meant.
No, the moon was real.
Yeah.
There was a movie in the early 1970s called Capricorn 1. And the basis of that movie was that that there was an expedition to Mars, but the expedition was all fake. And So all and it was an evil government conspiracy, and we had this this reporter who was trying to expose the conspiracy, and the astronauts wound up in a desert somewhere, and one of the astronauts was played by O.J. Simpson.
No way!
What? No, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. All right, now we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I certainly don't want to halt, the conversation on aliens. But I do definitely want to ask you. So you said you're a big Star Trek fan.
Yes.
Now let's say hypothetically the Star Wars universe and the Star Trek universe were to collide, and there was some sort of warfare going on. Who's winning that war?
Well, me and my brother are kind of hybrids of both.
Really?
I took my brother he was all of 17 years old. I took him to 1977 when the first Star Wars, Star Wars, what was now known as Star Wars: A New Hope, came out.
Yeah.
And I'm
Best
sitting,
one.
And I'm sitting there. It was they were actually, if you remember from the first Star Wars, after the introduction, and I'm thinking, I grew up as a kid watching Flash Gordon. The serials, and it was done the same way with the flow, with the story being unfolded, And I'm looking at it, and I'm saying, "Oh my God, this is Flash Gordon." and then the one warship attacks the other warship, and after a couple of seconds, Darth Vader strides in.
Oh man,
he strides, and that's the first time anybody has seen Darth Vader in a movie theater, and people in the audience started going. Boo! It was hysterical.
What a badass Darth Vader is.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine being one of the first people to see.
Yeah, but he turned out to be a good guy.
Oh yeah, at the end he ended up helping him out.
I like I've always thought if you consider pure, absolute, unmitigated evil, all you have to do is watch The Dark Knight. With Heath Ledger.
Yeah, it's the Joker. That's my favorite example, too.
He is unremittingly evil.
Yeah. Darth Vader, he did kind of have a little bit of a nice side to him, especially in the original ones.
He wound up killing the evil emperor at the end.
And I feel like in the original ones, he wasn't even that, brutal. He was brutal, but I felt like he wasn't as in the later ones, not I'm trying to the later ones.
He's more feared in the later ones.
Well, because then, you have the last of the new ones. I'm trying to... so, episode 3...
Oh, those
Anakin...
Oh, they're great.
Episode 3, Anakin just starts butchering children, and then you have in, A New Hope and things like that. Totally different. I feel like it was...
I am your father.
No, I have a question for you. Now that all of them are released, have you watched them in the order you're supposed to watch them now, or...
Well, I'm not. The first 3 was the first one came out in 1977.
Yeah.
The Empire Strikes Back came out in 1980, and that's the ultimate sequel to any movie. I mean that was, and then the Return of the Jedi came out in 1983, and then George Lucas, a guy responsible for the Star Wars, then he did the 3 prequels: the Phantom Menace, the Revenge of the Sith. There were 3, but recently with The Force Awakens,
what was your stance on that?
Well, I hated to see Harrison Ford die.
Yeah, that was terrible.
But I thought my wife and I took our little 8-year-old neighbor Sterling to go see it, and I thought the next one out, Rogue One.
I love that one.
That was incredible.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal.
Great backstory too.
Yep.
I have to say, I'm not a big fan of the new villain of I can't think of his name. The leader of the.
Oh, neither can I.
The young. He's kind of the young kid.
Yeah.
I feel like he's lame.
Yeah,
he's
I can't even think of his name either.
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren.
Ren.
I felt like he was such a lame bad guy.
Not memorable. Like Darth Vader.
He's obviously in an unfortunate position because he's in the shadow of Darth Vader. But I felt like he was.
We'll see in December when the new one comes.
Yeah, the new one's supposed to be.
Looks awesome.
Good, I hope.
Looks awesome. Well, he doesn't have the previews don't have to show you anything, and people are going to go see it because it's.
I'm going to go see it.
Oh,
yeah,
definitely. I'm going to go to the premiere.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so we don't have a whole lot of time, but back to the original question: if Star Wars and Star Trek collided, who's winning that?
I haven't even had I couldn't even.
Well, I feel like Star Trek, they don't, I mean, you probably know better than I do. They don't have like Jedis, you know, they don't have that kind of power.
Yeah. Well, I've been
as cool as Captain Kirk is. Don't get me wrong.
I've been going to. I would have to say personally, I'm more of. I grew up. I mean, I was. I watched the original Trek when it was on network TV back in the 1960s, back when I was in college.
Yeah.
So I've been.
You're a Trekkie, through and through.
What about the new one that's out? Isn't there like a new spinoff? Or?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. It's on. It's streamlined on CBS. I
Mhm.
think it is.
It's pretty like new.
But I'm in my. There's a channel that I get on cable called the Heroes and Icon channel. And every night there have been several different Star Trek emanations. I think there's Star Trek, then Star Trek The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise that have all been, and this channel, this Heroes and Icon channel shows, 8 o'clock there's the original series, 9 o'clock there's that, and it shows all the old ones in sequence.
Yeah.
So,
well, we actually have to wrap up the show, which is super unfortunate because, man, I love this conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming on.
I'd love to come back.
I would love to have you come back. I mean, hell, I'd bring you in every week.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
So
my,
Vic,
my pleasure. Thank you for
this
having
was
me.
awesome. Yeah, I certainly learned a lot. So we'll put the outro on. Again, you've been listening to the Roundup Podcast with Professor Bob Search. And have a great rest of your week, and we will see you next Monday.